And we're back here at Boom and Bust with Professor Bobby Duffy, Professor at King's College London, talking about the World Values Survey. And Professor, we were just starting to talk about attitudes towards the connection between working hard leading to a better life. And you were making some points on that. Please continue.
Yeah, so because we've had these economic difficulties where growth has been sluggish, people's progress and wage progress has been sluggish, that there is that pressure on that perception of does work still pay. But it's important to recognize that you still get 35% of Canadians saying that in the long run, hard work usually brings a better life.
Right.
And you only get 1 in 5 Canadians saying that hard work doesn't generally bring success. It's more a matter of luck and connection. So 1 in 5 at one end, a third of people at the other, with the rest in the middle. And that hasn't really shifted massively. It's a bit softer on people thinking hard work pays, but not a big change like we've seen in the changes on whether we should be emphasizing work or leisure for people. So people are feeling the pinch, but it's not leading them to say work is not worth it at all. And largely because what's the alternative for
Right.
people? People need to make the money, they need to survive. And that is the economic realities that people are facing. The idea of quiet quitting and people being able to kind of step away from work because they've got that choice is a minority trend. It is true, it is definitely there, but it's not what most people can afford to do.
Right. That was a subsequent question, actually, whether you've noticed any changes. Quiet quitting as a term came about during or just after the COVID lockdowns, et cetera. Have you seen any big changes in attitudes as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, again, such a great question, because this study is quite useful in looking at this, because we have countries that did their fieldwork before the pandemic, and then countries like the UK who did their fieldwork after the pandemic. And the key message that comes through from that is that the UK, as one of the later countries, is not markedly different from Canada or other. The trends that we see are pretty smooth through the pandemic through to the other side. This has not been the complete reappraisal of work that we may have thought we were going to see while we were in the pandemic. It has shifted things a bit, but it's more been pushing us along a trend that we'd already been seeing in rebalancing our emphasis on work and leisure rather than a wholesale rethinking.
Interesting. I guess the other thing that's coming down the pipe, of course, is we have higher interest rates now, higher inflation, although that is starting to moderate a little bit. Do you expect, if that creates greater economic insecurity, are you expecting an impact on attitudes?
Yeah, you do. You see that go up and down. We've been in the UK. We've been living through a very tough cost of living crisis, as it's being called here, because we have had very high inflation, and we have had the impact from increased interest rates feeding through into mortgage rates for people for the last couple of years now. And you can see what we're seeing is a big shift in behaviors, more so than attitudes for people. So people are feeling the pinch and are curtailing their spending, which is what we need to do to control inflation in the end. But still not a big turnaround in attitudes to work generally. People still, and in some ways you can understand that we are within that system of this is the reality. These are the economic realities that people are facing. I think that there are worrying signs in the broader questions that we ask around people's faith in democracy and faith in our institutions. Are they delivering for people, government and other state institutions? And that is a worry. And there is having too many of these crises, economic crises in a row that people are facing, it is raising questions of, is the system working for me? And I've got a big interest in generation on generation change, and whether we have a vision for future generations that's going to be better than previous generations. And that confidence has been severely knocked in people since the economic crisis, financial crisis in 2008. we are struggling to see that our kids are going to have a better future than us, and that is a worry for economic and political systems when people can't see that brighter future.
Let's talk about that next. We're going to take a short break, sir, but I do want to talk about social cohesion, because it seems to me that if people still have faith that hard work can bring success, that's a good sign for social cohesion, but there might be some cross-current trends. We're going to take a brief break. We'll be back with our guest. Please stay with us.